Hello everyone, welcome back to more 428 Shibuya Scramble. Last time we ended Maria's story, which makes me very sad because she was delightful. And we also found we found her at the rooftop. Tateno wants Marie, or he wants Hitomi's heart. He wants to steal it. And Minorikawa, he's dealing with some shit. Achi, he's dealing with some shit. Everyone's dealing with some shit. Especially this guy. This guy's the shit dealer. Anyways, let's continue on with the story off Minorikawa, because that'll be funny, won't it? The TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What does this mean? Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hana told us herself that the van explosion was her father committing suicide. Didn't she? The only explanation I can think of, Minorikawa replied, is that Hana was lying. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why? Chiaki said. Ozu let out a snort. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual, using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Minorikawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive, and if he was still alive, there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time, with the big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on, it should be smooth sailing. Well, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing as Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait here for him. He sat back down on the sofa. But Sagawa leaned threateningly towards Chiaki. Hey! He snarled. You sure you don't know where this guy's hiding out? I don't. Chiaki shot back. And even if I did, I'd never tell you. Say what now? He leaned in even closer, just as she stood on her tiptoes in defiance, and their foreheads collided with a dull thud. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. Just calm down, Chiaki, Minorikawa said as he began rooting through Toyama's desk. For now, I'm going to look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your article. Oh? Ozu raised an eyebrow. Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for next month's issue. And if I can't do that without the editor-in-chief's approval. What Minorikawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-Star General Gossip. He was pretty sure the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that the scientist had asked for, he'd also be able to get his big lead on the power balance of the world being at stake. And if he could get that, not only would next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found a little folder full of early material and quickly flipped through it. It didn't take him long to find the article. Floundering Ikoshi Pharmaceutical arranges marriage of political convenience. The large headline practically jumped off the page. So the way this shot is framed, is Ozu just looking over his shoulder the whole time? Minorikawa quickly read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. The corporate director of Ikoshi Pharmaceutical had sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. That must be what Osawa wanted him to look into, the guy his wife had been dating before they were married. It should be easy enough just to ask whoever had written the article. Minorikawa's gaze jumped to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. "Hey, ain't you done yet?" Sagawa yelled. "Tell us what Toyama is already!" Yeah, Minorikawa thought. "We're gonna need to do something about these guys." "I'm still looking into it," he said. "Just hold on." He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electrical and gas bills, Noodle House delivery menus, and the like. "Look faster!" Sagawa growled. Maybe he could mollify this guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. "Hey, you guys hungry? I was thinking of ordering some soba." "Man, this ain't no time for that," Sagawa snarled. "Besides, we just had some soba anyhow. And it was awful. Don't talk to me about noodles." Sagawa launched into a shadowboxing session as if trying to punch out the provider of his disappointing soba. The guy clearly had zero capacity for sitting still. Minorikawa had found the back issue of the gossip he was looking for. He still needed Chiaki's article, though, and she wasn't quite finished yet. He had to buy some more time. "By the way," he said to Sagawa, "are you familiar with SOS?" "SOS?" The thug paused mid-jab. "Yeah, SOS. I was planning on interviewing them later today. Hear there's some pretty tough guys." "Only one of them who'd be able to give me a fight would probably be that Achi Endo. Except as I hear it, he left the gang." "Ah, really now? Heard anything else interesting?" "Sounds like nowadays they're being run by some guy named Suzumu." The name Suzumu rung a bell. Those two young punks who'd been arguing after the van explosion had mentioned him. "Seems like SOS is in a pretty rough state since Achi left, though," Sagawa added. Minorikawa didn't miss a beat. "What do you mean, rough state?" "Back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes. Never shake folks down or steal or any of that stuff. Guess their founder Achi hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble, hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is not to get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scary bunch around here. And there's a lot of them together." "And their main hangout, that's at Inferno, yeah?" "Yeah, over in Harajuku. Known as Uruhara for short. The area east of the Japan Rail Harajuku station where the Takeshita Dori meets Meiji Dori. There are many small clothing and accessory stores here, set up in renovated houses. Most of these shops are on the cutting edge of youth fashion, offering quirky and unique means of personal expression." "Man, you've been listening out on the streets. What gives?" "Ura Harajuku, huh?" Minorikawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Sagawa's eyes went wide. "Haha! So that's where Toyama is! Wait, nah, no way a coward like him would go to a place like that." Chiaki looked up from her keyboard. "Look, can you please shut up?" "No, you shut up!" "That's my phone." Minorikawa pulled his cell out of his pocket. It was Toyama's name on the incoming call screen. Minorikawa's heart skipped a beat. "Toyama, where are you?" he blurted out as he picked up. Chiaki, Ozu, and Sagawa turned to look at him as one. "Well, what were you thinking, faking your death like that?" "Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do was delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt. So I thought if I made it look like I was dead." Minorikawa let out an exasperated sigh. "Well, everyone knows you're still alive, so your little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time." What? Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. Alright, listen up, Minorikawa said. If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that back real soon. What do you mean? I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1 million copies and still sell out if we can run it as an article. Toyama perked right up. Wait, you really mean it? I'll give you all the details. Just get your butt back here. But aren't those loan sharks there at the office right now? Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are. The two thugs crowded nearer, a predatory gleam in their eyes. And Minorikawa had a flash of inspiration. Got it, he said, quickly, before Toyama could respond. Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now. Don't go anywhere. Ozu and Sagawa grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. Heh, Minorikawa said as their footsteps receded. Those guys took the bait. I sent them to Miyashita Park. He allowed himself a cocksure grin. Cocksure. Right then. So, where are you really, Toyama? You imbecile! I am at Miyashita Park! Oh, you idiot. What? Minorikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. What the hell are you doing someplace like that? Why the hell did you tell them Miyashita Park? I thought it would be a clever ruse. Well, it wasn't. This is no time to be fighting, Chiaki butted in. Yeah, you're right, Minorikawa scowled. Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need you to get out of there and go someplace we can talk. I can meet you there. Right, okay. They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where? Recalling the noodle house from the menu he'd seen earlier, he opted for that. Dogen Hut, huh? Toyama rumbled the words under his breath. What's the matter? Is there some problem with that? No. All right, I'll meet you there. It's over in Dogenzaka. The address is on the menu. He hung up, and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Chiaki, how's that copy coming along? Well, almost done? Just a little more, I think. All right, bring your computer and come with me. I'll read over what you've got so far. Are they back home? Yeah, two of my roommates went up north to the beach. Minorikawa waited as Chiaki got ready to head to the cafe. As the two were heading down to the office, however, someone else opened the door. You've got 14 minutes and 57 seconds left to send to press. The writer submits to the editor submits to the designer. This is the next step in that whole handoff process. Naturally, being late for this causes quite a lot of trouble. 56, 55. Who the fuck are you? Have I seen you before? A slender man with a gaudy necktie entered the room and sat down on the nearest desk, staring fixedly at his pocket watch. Minorikawa narrowed his eyes dubiously. Where have I... Oh my god. Where the fuck in... Don't tell me. Who the hell are you? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. That's just common decency. The man gave no indication he'd even heard Minorikawa's question. I suppose I can wait here, he continued. Just for another 14 minutes and 20 seconds. Mr. Mino? Is this guy talking about our submission? Chiaki stared doubtfully at the newcomer. Hey you, Minorikawa asked. Are you from the printer? The man did not reply. Don't ignore me! Are you from the printer? Still, the man remained silent. Minorikawa was furious. Look, cut the crap! He roared. That's actually a young Hideo Kojima before he was credited with the hit PS2 game. Maho romantic Moedo does not equal Kira Kira maid-san. I believe it. That's truthful. That has the ring of truth to it, so I'll believe it wholesale. In response, the man quietly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his business card. My name is not Hey You. That joke probably works better in Japanese. Or maybe it works well in English. He handed the card to Minorikawa. It read, Cho Nippon Printing Co. Limited. Sales Department, Division 1. Koichiro Katayama. I'm Koichiro Katayama, newly assigned to Heaven Publishing. A pleasure to meet you. My predecessor is in the hospital due to a car accident. Sachio Usui, 39 years old, single, a longtime veteran at Cho Nippon Printing. Rather timid by nature, the strain of dealing with the publishers makes him sick to his stomach. At around 1:10 p.m. earlier today, while driving to meet with one of his clients, he had to swerve to avoid a young man and woman who darted onto the street. He crashed into the car next to him and ended up at the hospital. Oh, okay then. Achi, you have some explaining to do. So, it's very unfortunate that I can't go back and change that now. Sorry. You should make a complete recovery in about 2 months. Well, what are you doing here, Katayama? Minorikawa asked. I thought we had until 8 o'clock to complete proofreading. 8 o'clock? Surely you must be joking. Our company's proofing deadline is 5:30. Katayama stared fixedly back at Minorikawa. Now that had to be a joke. I heard from the editor-in-chief that it was 8 o'clock. I take that to mean, then, that you don't have any copy for us. It's not that we don't have it, Minorikawa said. It's just not finished yet. Just hold on until 8. Katayama raised an eyebrow. No. Publisher and printer need to work in concert. Perhaps my predecessor was the sort to delay the proofreading deadline owing to your circumstances here. But now I'm in charge, and I do not make exceptions. The proofing deadline is 5:30, sharp, and I intend to keep it that way. And while we've been having this discussion, you're down to 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Katayama held out his pocket watch as if to emphasize the point. That's ridiculous, Minorikawa exclaimed. Just who the hell do you think you are? You guys are going to be printing the paper that I wrote. Do you even know how lucky that makes you? So just wait, okay? Just give us until 8 o'clock. That was the original understanding. It was unfair to change it now. 8 o'clock, And where's your guarantee that you'll finish by then? We will. Just trust me. I'm supposed to heedlessly trust the word of the man I've just met? Katayama mused. We're down to 10 minutes and 46 seconds, by the way. You son of a bitch! Don't get all high and mighty just because you work for the printer. High and mighty? I'd say that it's the people on the publishing side of the things that act high and mighty. Whatever high-minded claims you might make, without us, you'd have nothing to put on the store shelves. Forgetting that and blithely ignoring your proofing deadline makes for more work on our end. Just what are you getting at, I wonder? Now it's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Minorikawa ground his teeth so hard he could hear it. His usual tactics were useless here. Katayama was simply too unflappable to be browbeaten. If he backed down now, though, it was game over. 10 minutes and 7 seconds remaining. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. That's just common decency. Katayama's pet phrase. Thus far, he has said, "That's just common decency" 3 times in this story. Always make sure to show up at 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait for the designated time. There was one more. Do you know when and where it was? Oh god. Katayama's eyes were once again locked on his pocket watch. It was no use. Minorikawa couldn't find a way to talk this guy around. Chiaki held her hand up. May I say something? Isn't it also common decency not to break a promise once it's been made? If you're referring to the 8 o'clock deadline, I was not the one who promised that. Maybe not, but I believe your predecessor's responsibilities become your responsibilities. Katayama crossed his arms and gave her a bemused look. What's your name, miss? Chiaki, she said bashfully. Chiaki Iso. The printer's expression visibly brightened. Good. That timid hesitation of yours is just splendid. You have none of the arrogance so typical among publishers. Huh? Chiaki was rather taken aback. In deference to your polite demeanor, I shall wait until 7 o'clock. That is the latest I can possibly allow. All right, Minorikawa shouted, practically in Katayama's face. We agree to those terms. No, I wasn't talking to... But we've got terms of our own. Wait. Katayama reeled ever so slightly. I'm not certain you're in any position to set terms here. Just shut up and listen. From here on out, you're coming with us. What? Why? We're going to finish up our copy on site, then burn the data onto CD, then hand it over to you there. That's why. Katayama let out a sigh of resignation. Oh, very well. I suppose I'd simply be waiting here anyway. Minorikawa pumped his fists in victory. Alright, Chiaki, go and copy the DTP data we've got so far onto your computer. Sure thing, Mr. Mino. Chiaki quietly set about copying the data from the editing department's desktop. Okay, done. Then let's go. With the others in tow, Minorikawa headed for the noodle house where Toyama would be waiting. The soba restaurant Dogen Hut was roughly halfway up Dogenzaka. A long-standing noodle shop on Dogenzaka. 2 years ago, the owner passed away from illness. Now the restaurant is run by his widow, Maki Yoneda, and her 2 part-timers, Masa from Midoriyama Academy, Mohinder, an Indian exchange student. Despite the sign billing the establishment as a soba restaurant, duck meat soba and chilled curry soba are the only 2 actual soba offerings. The rest of the menu, for some reason, is all udon dishes. And, in fact, both kinds of soba are terrible. Although, maybe the chilled curry soba would be okay if someone else were making it. Inside, they encountered the proprietress near the door. She held a massive cleaver for cutting soba noodles clutched in one hand. Toyama wasn't there. Excuse me, Minorikawa said. Has a middle-aged man come by your shop? Name's Toyama. What the fuck? The proprietress let out a wary sigh. That guy, huh? You folks know him? Yes, that's right. And I'm sorry. I didn't want to have to do this. It was all his fault, though. You reap what you sow. Minorikawa didn't know what she was going on about, but suddenly he had a very bad feeling. So then, Toyama was here? He asked cautiously. Yes, he came by. Well, where is he now? Please tell me. No. I have no obligation to tell anything to friends of Toyama's. Evidently, there was some bad blood between Toyama and this woman. The real victim here is me. Her voice rose abruptly to a roar. Now listen up good to this old woman's story. I don't have time for this, Minorikawa thought. He needed to find Toyama as soon as possible, but instead it looked like he'd be stuck hearing out this angry woman first. Alright, we're listening. Tell us your story. It's a long one. The woman's mouth twisted up, and she licked her lips, leaning in to tell her tale. Long, long ago, when I was still in my 20s, I would often make deliveries to Heaven Publishing. They were some of my best customers. Back then, we were so busy my employees practically worked themselves to death. You see, Dogenhut had the finest soba in Japan, and our spokesmodel was considered one of the most beautiful girls in the world. Back when this woman was in her 20s, Heaven Publishing hadn't even existed yet, but Minorikawa figured he'd better not correct her. That would probably just piss her off and make her stop entirely. He kept his mouth shut and listened to her silly tale. But anyway, that's all in the past now. As time went on, we had a lot of delivery customers asking us to put bills on their tab. So much so that it became a problem, and we changed our policy to disallow that sort of thing. But the fine folks of Heaven Publishing consider themselves an exception to that rule. And that put my part-timer Masa, who does the deliveries, in a bit of a bind. Okay. Oh, Masa's a student at Midoriyama Academy. First-year student at Midoriyama Academy. After getting indigestion from eating too much parfait at a fast food restaurant on Center Guy, he was there with his girlfriend to do a dry run for a competitive eating contest. He wound up going to the restroom 14 times in 1 hour. Unable to stand idly by, his girlfriend called on an acquaintance of hers, the gluttonous Chiriko Osugi, for advice on improving Masa's intestinal fortitude. It turned out, however, that Chiriko was planning to compete in the same contest. Knowing that they were up against some monumental competition, the two continued their training, wary of the battle to come. He took the day off to go on a date with his girlfriend. I hear they're planning to compete as a couple in some ice cream eating contest that's going to air on TV, so they were going to do a practice run together today. Honestly, how ridiculous is that? Honestly, I couldn't care less about Masa one way or the other, Minorikawa thought. This whole experience was turning into a real ordeal. So yes, we were in a real bind. I run a restaurant here, not a charity operation. I'd call and ask them to settle up, but they'd always insist, "Oh, we don't have any money." And that's a lie. It's got to be a lie. What else could it be? Otherwise, how could they keep making that magazine of theirs? That Celebrity Confidential or whatever the hell it is. Celebrity Confidential was a weekly tabloid put out by one of Heaven Publisher's competitors. Minorikawa was just going to have to let that egregious mix-up slide. And that's not all, the proprietress spat. Oh no, on top of that, their magazine's little gourmet Gab's Corner, or whatever they call it, ran a scathing review of us. After that, customers started keeping their distance, and I aged 20 years practically overnight. Gourmet Gabs was a column that ran in Celebrity Confidential. There was nothing of the sort in 4-star general gossip. This woman had clearly gotten the two magazines mixed up somehow. Awful. Just awful, isn't it? All I wanted to do was make soba for people to enjoy. And to be treated like this. Be treated like this. The woman had started to sob. The cleaver began to waver in her trembling hand. But then, earlier today, these two Yakuza-looking fellows came by. Said they were looking for Toyama from Heaven Publishing. Guess they saw one of our menus at his office and figured he might have come by. She had to be talking about Ozu and Sagawa. They'd both been nearby when Minorikawa was rooting through the desk drawers. They must have spotted the menu then. I told them he wasn't here and that he hadn't ordered delivery in some time, so they said that if I happened to see him, to give them a call. Now, I was just going to turn them away. They looked like a pair of nasty loan sharks. Toyama would never be able to pay off his tab if they caught him, and so I told them as much. The proprietress lowered her voice before continuing. But they said they'd be most appreciative if I could let them know. Even offered to pay his tab for me if I did. And well, that pretty much settled it. So I let them give me their phone number. Minorikawa's face went pale. This lady had been bribed by those two thugs? So I guess you figured it out. A little earlier, Toyama dropped by looking like he was trying to lie low. So it all came together. I snuck out back and gave those two a call. And so here we are. You guys were just a hair too late. Oh crap. Toyama had been carted off by the moneylenders. Minorikawa had to find him right away. Mr. Mino! Chiaki squeaked nervously. You have to hurry and go look for him. Yeah. Minorikawa and the others headed for the door. Wait! The voice surrounded, as if it had echoed up from the very depths of hell. Minorikawa and company stopped in their tracks. You think you can I can just let you go? The old woman began to stalk towards them. Those guys, they left without showing their appreciation or paying off that tab. They lied to me. And so just who's going to show me the appreciation I'm owed? Who's going to pay that tab? You're all in this together, trying to play me for a fool. But hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. The proprietress lifted her cleaver high. Her eyes smoldered with inhuman rage. A murderous aura surrounded her like a bonfire wind. Wait, Minorikawa cried. We're Toyama's... his friends? Then prepare yourselves. You'll repay his debt to me with your lives. The three companions stood paralyzed with horror, watching their bloody doom approach. The blade glimmered in the dimness as she swung it towards Minorikawa. Time for some fresh meat! What the fuck? What the actual fuck? Minorikawa, Chiaki, and Katayama screamed, their cries echoing clear across Dogonzaka. Jesus fucking Christ. Tragedy at the Noodle House. It was no ordinary grudge that the proprietress of the Dogen Hut held towards Toyama, as Minorikawa and the others found out firsthand, falling victim to her mighty cleaver. Yeah, this isn't the right place to have the meetup with Toyama. Seriously, who the heck decided this was a good idea? Fuck you, game, first of all. That's really funny. View all bad endings at the 17 o'clock time block. Incredible. That's really funny. I didn't even catch that. Nothing suitable came to mind. Probably Toyama should decide. You got any suggestions? Minorikawa said. Let's see. There's a bar in Daikanyama I drop by a lot. How about there? A very fashionable yet relaxed neighborhood in Shibuya. High-end boutiques, high-end restaurants, high-end confectionery shops, high-end cafes, high-end interior design stores, and high-end residential housing all line the streets. A settlement dating back 2,000 years to the Yayoi period has been excavated in Daikanyama, but it cannot be said for sure whether its dwellings were high-end for the time. Yeah, that'll work fine. Okay, start by heading north from Shibuya Station. After a while, you'll hit the three-way intersection. Turn left there, and then about 100 meters after that, take a right. Along the way, there will be a side street that branches off at a diagonal. Go slow and then take a right at the second intersection. Then head right down the stairs there, and it'll look like you need to go left at this slightly curving incline, but go right. And... okay. The way the text just appears over the other text. Okay, this is getting way too complicated. Forget it, I'll pick a place. Minorikawa suggested the cafe by the station. By now it was comfortably familiar. He quickly described the location. Okay, Toyama said. Cafe Lautrec, got it. I'll see you there. He hung up and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Yeah. We're gonna finish up a copy on site and hand you the CD. It's a booster. They reached Cafe Lautrec without incident, and Minorikawa promptly spotted the publisher. Over here, Toyama hissed, eyeing his surroundings with obvious unease. Hana sat by his side, solemnly sipping on some juice. The waitress came over as Minorikawa joined them. May I take your order? She asked. Water. Just water, sir? Fine, make it a double. Exasperated, the waitress headed back to the kitchen. Toyama looked over at Katayama. It's this guy. I'm Koichiro Katayama from Cho Nippon Printing. Katayama presented his business card. Toyama turned to Minorikawa with a quizzical look. What's someone from the printer doing with you? I'll explain later. There's no time for that right now, Minorikawa replied. That is a cute-ass laptop. That is a grandma-ass laptop right there. No. That's not grandma laptop. That's abuela laptop. First, I need you to answer some questions. Does the name Kenji Osawa ring any bells? Osawa? Toyama closed his eyes and thought. He heads a laboratory at Okoshi Pharmaceutical. You ran a piece on him in the first ever... He heads up a laboratory at Okoshi Pharmaceutical. You ran a piece on him in the first ever issue of 4-Star General Gossip. Toyama's face lit up with recognition. Oh yes, that political marriage piece. Yeah, that one. Do you remember the details from that article? Of course. What do you think I am? Toyama puffed himself up proudly. I used to be the local news copy editor for the Central Times. I've got the details for all the stuff I've ever covered here in my head. In that case, do you know who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married? Toyama blinked his eyes vacantly. Hey, what's the matter? Minorikawa asked. This is a pretty tough pop quiz you're giving me. Surprise, kids! It's time for a science quiz. What colorless, odorless gas, lighter than and air, and used for consumer and municipal gas applications is also known as marsh gas or swamp gas? Methane? Tune in next time for the right answer. Cut the crap, man. You just said you have all the details inside your head. Oh, they're in there all right. They're just not coming out. Minorikawa slumped. Mr. Toyama, please. Whether or not you'll be able to pay off your debts depends on your memory here. Hearing this, Hana cast a cold glare up at her father. All right, I can remember. Or at least I can try. Toyama folded his arms and hummed to himself, his gaze turned inward. So, I feel like it was a really common name. Sato, Chiaki chirped. Yamada. Was it either of those? They're pretty common names. But Toyama shook his head. Minorikawa offered a guess of his own. Tanaka. No, not that. It was something else. Just then, the television inside the cafe switched over to a news report on the Shibuya explosion. The remains of the individual discovered within the minivan itself, who has since been identified as the pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. Mamoru Tanaka? Toyama turned to look at the TV. An image of the victim's face appeared on the screen. The publisher blurted, nearly falling out of his seat. That's it! It was him! Right there! Mamoru Tanaka! Wait, that's what I said. Tanaka. Toyama pointed excitedly at the TV screen. That's who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married! Mamoru Tanaka! Minorikawa felt himself getting goosebumps. The victim of the terrorist bombing in Shibuya was also linked to the researcher who was key to a terrorist viral scare. His reporter's hunch was now a certainty. Right now, Shibuya was at the center of some massive conspiracy. This went far beyond even a major scoop. Mr. Toyama, we need to make sure that next month's issue hits shelves. Minorikawa called up Kenji Osawa to let him know the results of his little investigation. The man didn't seem terribly surprised. Probably he had had his suspicions all along. Osawa told him that there was something he needed to do before he was ready to give details on the big scoop, but that he would call back later. In the meantime, Minorikawa knew he'd have his hands full getting the current issue of the gossip wrapped up for the 7 o'clock deadline. He slapped his hands down on the table. All right, emergency editing meeting right here, he announced. We need to get a lead in on the Shibuya terrorist bombing into next issue. The article about the twins winning that beauty contest can be dropped for that. We'll use that info from Kenji Osawa as the basis for a big scoop in the issue after that. Mr. Toyama, any problems with that? No, that should be fine. But what about the remaining pages for next month's issue? Minorikawa opened the file on his computer. The layout built in the DTP came up on the monitor. The report on the Burning Hammer sales demo, the surveillance camera opinion piece, the interview with Orai. Those three were finished, the copy already incorporated into the layout. Once Chiaki's street interview piece was loaded in, that one could be checked off as well. Chiaki, how's your copy coming along? I'm sorry, I just need a little bit longer. The writing seemed to still be giving her a fair bit of trouble. The article on SOS was still just a placeholder in the layout, and Minorikawa hadn't even gotten any material for that, putting it even further behind Chiaki's street interviews. Still, he'd at least learned where Shibuya's legendary street gang made their hangout. He'd just have to take the risk of dropping in on them and unannounced to ambush them with some interview questions. And then there was the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing. That wasn't even in the layout yet. It was a completely blank slate. Against all odds, they were going to need to put that article together from nothing with just an hour and change. It was an impossible amount of work for just him and Chiaki to do. Well, and how are things coming along? Katayama brings Byakuya energy to the table that I don't think I appreciate. Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Minorikawa hurried to cover the screen. Don't look. If the printer rep saw all the blank pages, he might decide to stop waiting. Would you mind telling me roughly what % of the total you have completed thus far? What percent? Come off it, man. We're at 100%. If you're 100% done, that implies you're all finished. Could I please have the data then? No. I'm saying our willpower is at 100%. I'm not even going to pretend I understand what you mean by that. Shaking his head, Katayama sat back down in his chair. Minorikawa, Toyama asked, his expression uneasy. So, I know I asked before, but why is someone from the printer here again? Katayama promptly chimed in. The long and short of it is that your proofing deadline has been changed to 7 o'clock, he said. What? But that's impossible! Who's doing the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing? Toyama eyed Minorikawa and then Chiaki. Both stared back non-committally. And it really is impossible. We'll never meet that deadline. We don't have enough people. No, we do have enough. Minorikawa thrust out his finger. Mr. Toyama, you're going to write that one and handle the layout. What? Heaven Publishing is your company. Won't you step up in order to protect it? Toyama hung his head. Even if I headed to the scene right now, I'm sure the other outlets have already gotten their coverage. I wouldn't be able to find anything new to write about. And you're just going to give up? A moment later, Toyama was on the floor, Minorikawa glaring down at him. You've always said you wanted to tell the world about the things the mass media can't or won't write about. So what the hell difference does it make if they're already gotten the sound bites thereafter? Minorikawa's voice was raw with emotion. Don't you dare give up. Not that easily. Get your ass out there. Find something that only you can write about. Minorikawa. Toyama began to object, then he glanced over at Hana. There was an imploring look in her eyes as well. I get what you're saying, Toyama grumbled, but still, you're expecting a lot. But then, despite his words, he flashed a broad grin. Yeah, Minorikawa let out a quiet chuckle. And it's got you all fired up. Yeah, fired up all right. Toyama's face shone with resolve that Minorikawa hadn't seen in a long time. Hype moment and aura. There we go. That's the Toyama I know. You know, I'm really sorry. Now I see the huge burden I put on you. But damn it, it's going to be all right. Getting to his feet, Toyama took his daughter by the hand and strode boldly out of the cafe, looking like a changed man. Minorikawa watched them go, glad the dithering was over. Even if Toyama were still in his prime, he'd be cutting it loose to do that article in an hour. He'd be cutting it close to do that article in an hour. But he would pull through somehow. When it came to taking care of Hana, the man would rise to the occasion again and again. Father and daughter disappeared into the crowd, hand in hand. Minorikawa shook himself out of his reverie. All right, he cried. Despite the clear blue sky, an unexpected gust of wind blew across his cheek. Come on, guys, we gotta get going too. Yeah. Things might look grim, but he wasn't going to give up until the bitter end. It was time to head to the SOS hangout, Inferno. The three ran long and hard after leaving the cafe. If the proofing deadline was 7 o'clock, then they needed to finish up with SOS by 6:30 at the latest. The gang's hangout was in Ura Harajuku. Running all the way there on foot was going to eat into too much of their time. but traffic was at a near standstill for some reason, and there wasn't a taxi in sight. "How long do you plan on running like this?" Katayama called out, panting. "Just take a look at the road. With this traffic, there's no point in hailing a cab." Even Minorikawa was feeling the time pressure now. "We're just gonna have to keep running until the road's clear." "What?" Katayama wailed. "Stop your whining. Just keep quiet and stick with me." He'd finally gotten Toyama to find his willpower again. Next month's issue would come out on time, and no way was some printer guy going to mess that up now. But the traffic showed no signs of abating. Catching a cab wasn't going to be an option. Fighting an ever louder echo of despair, Minorikawa kept up despite his desperate headlong rush. I read forward a bit, and I read that as hedgehog rush. To rush into a situation recklessly or heedlessly. Not quite the same as being Daredevil. Minorikawa's hedgehog rush. That seems familiar. Still, there were limits to how far the mind could push the body before exhaustion set in. Eek! As they were running across a pedestrian overpass, Chiaki slipped and took a nasty fall. She skinned her knee hard enough to draw blood. "Hey, you!" Minorikawa snapped at Katayama. "Don't just stand there. Help the poor girl already." Katayama scurried over to Chiaki. I'm sorry, Mr. Mino. Chiaki's voice bubbled with suppressed tears. Maybe it was cruel to make her run with her computer all the way to Ura Harajuku. But the copy for her interviews still needed to be looked over. They couldn't just leave her here. Minorikawa hesitated, undecided. Even at a full run, they wouldn't make it in time. And with traffic the way it was, there was nothing they could do. You now have, Katayama consulted his pocket watch. Exactly 1 hour remaining. "Damn it!" Minorikawa raged. "What do we do?" Relentlessly, the clock ticked on. Ooh. That's rough, man. I'm gonna run this. So let's go to... I had 5 surgeries on my left knee. Let's go to Osawa. The rain won't let up. The sound is growing louder and louder inside my head. It is the sound of regret, spattering against my heart. My emotions surge like a terrible storm within me. I never wished for this. Never expected my heart to be dragged so far beyond my control. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. The words stormed through Osawa's mind in a relentless cacophony. He'd called up the images of the bodies from the human testing trials on his computer monitor. Couldn't help but imagine his daughter in the same gruesome state. In just a few more hours, Maria would begin hemorrhaging blood and die just like the people in these pictures had. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. He couldn't shake the words or the reality from his mind. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Osawa began pounding on his fists fiercely on the desktop. Sir, what are you doing? Kajiwara tried to intervene, but he kept on pounding away. When he finally ceased, the pain of the repeated impacts lingered in his hands. My research was never about any sincere desire to help people, and now I'm paying the price for that. The one time it finally matters, I can't even save my own daughter. Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara set a hand on his shoulder. You can always blame yourself later, but for now, think again, good and hard. Is there really no other way to save Maria? Nothing else we could try? Osawa shook his head. The only means we had left was using Tanaka's password to unlock the doors. And now Tanaka is dead. There's no other way. Is there a possibility that Mr. Tanaka told someone else's password? This was something Osawa hadn't considered. Was there anyone Tanaka might have shared his password with? Only one person came to mind. Well, yes, there may be someone. You're referring to I, sir. Kajiwara cast his eyes down. You figured that out then? Yes. Back during the commotion over that listening device, a necktie clip isn't typically the sort of present one gives to one husband's co-worker. And yet, although some might consider it somewhat inappropriate, Mr. Tanaka was wearing it as if it were a matter of course, which implies something about their relationship. Kajiwara's voice trailed off. He coughed apologetically and tried again. I realize it's an awkward situation, but please, sir, check with your wife. Even if I does happen to know the password, that does us no good if Maria gets quarantined someplace we can't reach her. I understand, Mr. Osawa. I'll bring Maria to you then. I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. The detective then produced a bunch of bananas from his pocket. These are all left over. You're more than welcome to them, sir. Despite his gentle smile, the rest of his face was firm with resolve. You said you didn't care whether other people understood you, didn't you, Mr. Osawa? Osawa nodded guardedly. At the risk of being presumptuous, sir, I understand you, Kajiwara said. I used to be quite the workaholic myself. You're just like me, innocent and awkward. On another occasion, Kajiwara was shocked to run into a man who looked just like him. The fellow was a stylist at the hair salon Kajiwara visits on occasion. He let out a gasp of surprise of his own upon seeing the detective. Kajiwara felt a peculiar connection and was expecting to go to the salon regularly, but when the stylist asked what he did for a living, Kajiwara answered honestly that he was a detective. The other man's face went pale, and he bolted out of the building. Kajiwara never saw the man again after that. Are we sure Kajiwara didn't just meet a skinwalker or something? I guess in Japan it would be a yokai of some sort. Calling yourself innocent, huh? How modest of you. Osawa let out a sardonic chuckle, and after a moment Kajiwara joined in. The next time I see you, Mr. Osawa, I'll have Maria with me. The detective gave a slight bow, then left the study, a look of determination on his face. Osawa watched him go with admiration. No matter what trouble arose, the man always looked for something he could do. He really was a fellow who knew how to hang tough. Compared to that, Osawa couldn't even articulate his own self-disgust. And asking Ai about the password would also mean inquiring into her relationship with Tanaka. The prospect was daunting. Venturing into the emotional territory of another person was his weakest suit. He left his study, but somehow found himself making his way to Maria's room, not Ai's. He realized that he hadn't been into his daughter's room since a certain rainy day years before. Now he stepped quietly inside and saw Maria's world laid out before him. A small photo was set atop her neat and tidy desk. It was a close-up of someone's hand doing a cat's cradle. Whose hands were they? From the skin tone, they didn't appear to be Maria's. Several more photographs were pinned to a corkboard that hung on the wall. They were snapshots of people and townscapes from the Middle East. One glance at them and Osawa felt like he was back there for a moment. The images weren't necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but they all looked like they'd been taken by a professional. When he spotted the last photo on the corkboard, however, he was certain that Maria had taken them all. Damn, he looked kind of sexy in that photo. The last picture was of Osawa himself. He was facing the camera, holding some luggage and flashing an awkward smile. It was a comical, affectionate image. He'd never known that photography was one of his daughter's hobbies. No. This went beyond a mere hobby. Did she perhaps aspire to be a professional photographer one day? She certainly had the aptitude from it, from the look of things. Maria, a photographer. As he mulled the idea over, Osawa felt his chest tighten. Right now it looked like Maria's hopes and dreams were about to be snuffed out. Her future consisted of bleeding to death a few short hours from now. Osawa stared vacantly out the window. The view from Maria's room remained unchanged from so long ago. Again, that rainy day crept into his mind, as vivid as the present. On that day, Osawa was dealing with some pressing business from work. He'd ensconced himself in his study, wrestling with some paperwork, when Hitomi barged in, looking distraught. Maria's gone. Sensing that Hitomi was legitimately alarmed, Osawa hurried to Maria's room. He found a letter she'd left atop her writing desk. Dad, you only care about Hitomi. You're always working and never do anything with me, so I'm running away. A few hours earlier, he'd canceled their weekend trip to the amusement park. He just wasn't going to be able to get his work done in time. Hitomi had resigned herself readily enough, but Maria just couldn't accept it. She'd been looking forward to it for so long, she railed at him. How many times now had he broken one of his promises to her? Hitomi understands we can't go, so why can't you do the same? The cold rebuke had ended her complaining, but it was clear she still didn't accept the situation. Now Hitomi helped him look around, but they found nothing missing from Maria's room. Despite her assertion that she was running away, then, it seemed like there was no point in being overly concerned. Maybe she's at the park she always goes to. Hitomi looked worried. The park was roughly a 25-minute walk from the house. It would only take about an hour for Osawa to get her and bring her home. But an hour was more than he could afford to spare right now. Dad, I think she's waiting for you to go after her. Osawa didn't need Hitomi to tell him that. He knew it well enough. That was what galled him so much about the situation. Why did she have to pull something like this precisely when his work was at its busiest? He'd done everything he could as a father since his wife passed away. Why couldn't his daughter see that? It's all right. Your sister will come back. The rain was coming down pretty hard outside the window. Do you think she brought an umbrella? Hitomi asked anxiously. I don't know, but with the rain like this, she'll come back home soon enough. He spoke the words for himself as much as for Hitomi. Then he headed back to his study and got back to work. But several hours went by, and still Maria did not return. The rain had gotten even more intense, to the point where Osawa could hear it in his study. He was so concerned about his missing girl that he couldn't focus on his work, but he stubbornly refused to give in and go search for her. Several more hours passed. At last, Maria appeared at the front door, soaking wet. Osawa met her silently in the entryway. Wet strands of hair clung to the girl's forehead as she looked up at her father with a bitter glare. "You don't care what happens to me, do you?" Immediately, Osawa smacked her across the cheek with the flat of his hand. It was the first time in his life he'd ever struck anyone. He hadn't known such a violent impulse could exist inside him. Maria stood there, her hand pressed to her cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes. She began to tremble. On her lip was a small bead of blood. A flood of guilt and regret rose up inside Osawa, as if he'd just shattered some intricate piece of glasswork. How? How could I do such a thing? He clenched his shameful hand into a fist, and in that moment he was afraid of Maria, afraid that his daughter could bring such raw emotion out of him and make him do something so thoughtless. But even more, he was afraid of how stunned he was as a human being. Was someone like him really fit to be a parent? What kind of future could Maria and Hitomi hope for with a father like him? That was why he'd married Ai as Makino had proposed. Having a mother, he decided, would help his family together despite their sad excuse for a father. But in doing so, Osawa had dug a psychological ditch between himself and his daughters. A deep ditch, so that he could keep his daughters from being hurt. So that he wouldn't hurt himself. Now Osawa was staring across that ditch, wondering if it was too wide to leap. He thought back to his earlier exchange with Kajiwara. If you get angry, you show it. If you get sad, you show it. It's human nature to let other people know how we're feeling after all. But what if doing that hurts the other person? That's when you apologize, sir. Yes, that was right. He needed to apologize to Maria for what he'd done that day. It still wasn't too late. It's never too late. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. He recalled Pretty Honey's words. He needed to apologize to Maria, and so he needed to ask Ai for that password. Osawa was going to have to face his wife. I know where to go. I believe it's so. Osawa's phone number rang and Minorikawa's phone number popped up on the LCD display. The reporter must have finished looking into the matter Osawa had asked about. Mr. Osawa? Sorry to keep you waiting. How did it go? Well, I looked into the background of that story you asked about, and I learned who it was your wife was dating. Who was it? Osawa asked immediately. There was a brief pause. Mamoru Tanaka. See. Finally, he had proof positive of a relationship between Ai and Tanaka. Now, more than ever, it was no time to waver. No matter how painful the reality was, it was also true that if they hadn't been dating, there would probably be no way of saving Maria. So, Minorikawa said, what was this big thing about disrupting the power balance of the world all about? There's something I need to take care of on my end first. Once I'm finished, I'll tell you everything. Yeah, that's fine. Things are pretty hectic on my end right now anyway. Osawa had expected Minorikawa to put up more of a fight. He'd figured a reporter for 4-star General Gossip would be a bit more persistent. Oh, by the way, there's one other thing I wanted to tell you, Mr. Osawa. Osawa could practically sense the finger pointing his way from the other end of the line. Don't be too angry with your wife. All too often in this world, people let their anger get in the way of solving their problems. You may have a point. Osawa let out a wry chuckle. Alright then, I'll call you back later. Osawa found Ai standing by herself in the yard. She kept her back to him as he approached. May I have a moment? He asked quietly. What? Still, she didn't bother to turn around. There's something important I need to talk to you about. I'm not in the mood right now. Please, I realize you're upset about Tanaka's death, but... At the mention of Tanaka's name, Ai slowly shook her head. Don't. Just tell me what you want. Hurry up and get to the point. Osawa tried to move closer to her, but she pointedly kept her distance. There was something Osawa needed to hear for himself before this went any further. Were you in love with Tanaka? What are you talking about? Osawa frowned. Why did you marry me? He asked. You've got to be kidding. This is the important discussion you wanted to have? Did you ever love me? I let out a joyless chuckle. Love? I'm amazed to even hear the word leave your lips. There was a note of challenge in her voice. Let me ask you the same question. Did you ever love me? Be honest, I married you because I thought my daughters needed a mother. Wow. I let out a weary sigh. Some of the combative tension left her shoulders. That really is honest, she said. So I guess I should be honest too. I married you because my father asked me to. He wanted to chain you down so you didn't leave for some other company. And you're okay with marrying someone for something like that? For something like that? You really have no idea how much you're worth, do you? The value of one woman's life versus the potential profits in your research would bring in? There's no comparing the two. If it meant that Akoshi Pharmaceutical would monopolize your talents, then what did it even matter what I wanted for myself? There was something akin to desperation in Ai's words. And so you sent me those threatening emails too? What? I looked at him in shock. He knew he'd guessed correctly. You would go that far just to keep me tied to your father's business? That's right. I would. I bit down on her lip hard. But what would you even know about how I feel? Sorry. Don't apologize. I shook her head vehemently. I'm not the victim here. You say that, but isn't it because of me that you and Tanaka weren't able to stay together? I began to tremble. Her secret was out. When did you figure it out? She asked. Earlier today. That tie clip. Right. Not the sort of gift one gives to one's husband's coworker, is it? Even if it was a listening device. Ai's smile was bitter with self-depreciation. Osawa couldn't help but pity her. Even Tanaka must have suspected that she placed the company's profit above all else, even if she'd go to such lengths to protect its interests. It was like she'd given up her entire life just for that. Well, she said, aren't you angry? Osawa just shook his head. Could you tell me just one thing, though? He asked. Did Tanaka ever tell you what his lab password was? His password? I needed to get the antiviral out of the lab. I flinched at the suggestion. To get it out? What are you thinking? That belongs to the company. I just need one dose to save Maria. Please, if you know, please tell me. I don't know it. I's voice was barely a whisper. Osawa looked his wife right in the eye. You're telling the truth. I am. I see. Then, do you have any idea what number he might have used for a password? I shook her head silently, then turned her back to her husband once more. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes tight. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Oh, shit. Yeah, let's just go to Kano. A gunshot rang out from Tateno's gun, but it was a wild shot, fired reflexively as the weapon flew out of his hand. A figure had leapt from behind the water storage tank, kicking him in the arm that held the gun. Then, moving almost too fast for the eye to track, the newcomer delivered an elbow strike to Tateno's jaw. Kano didn't even have the chance to fire his gun. Before he could react, Maria's kidnapper was laid out on the ground. Without so much as looking back, the girl bolted down the stairs. "Maria!" Kano shouted. He started to chase after her, but a bright glimmer in the corner of his eye stopped him in his tracks. The strange assailant had drawn a knife and was preparing to slit the unconscious Tateno's throat. Kano quickly brought his gun back to bear. "Stop right there!" The knife stopped, mere millimeters from Tateno's neck. Kano was sure that if he hadn't intervened, the detective's throat would have been slit already. The knife wielder pulled back the hood after that had been concealing her face. "You. I know you," Kano said, shocked that he recognized the attacker. It was the girl who'd been knocked down by the minivan explosion. "Why stop me?" she asked, her tone ice cold. "Weren't you just about to shoot him yourself?" "I don't have a reason to shoot him anymore. Not now that you've helped Maria escape." "Please put the knife away." "Very well. Looks like he's not waking up for a while anyway." The girl withdrew the knife and rose to her feet. "Why did you come to Maria's rescue?" "Because she's my friend," the girl said simply. "She's been infected with the virus," Kano said. "We have to get her help as soon as possible." He headed for the stairs that Maria had scampered down. "Not so fast. Don't move." The girl's sharp tone made Kano stop. "What for?" he demanded. "I thought you wanted to help." "I do want to help her, which is why I'm not letting the police get their hands on her." The girl's voice was quiet but hard as steel. "The police are afraid of the Uwa virus spreading, which is why they'll certainly place Maria under quarantine. If that happens, there won't be any way to save her." "Just who in the world are you?" "Before I answer that, let's make a deal." Kano waited, non-committal. "I have information relevant to the case," the girl continued. "I want to make an exchange." Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. "Exchange for what?" "Tell me where Hitomi Osawa is." "Hitomi Osawa?" Stanley had taken Hitomi into custody. Kano could probably get in touch and ask him where she was, but... "Why do you want to know where Hitomi is?" Do we have a deal or not? The girl looked like she was in no mood to argue. Still, if she knew about the UA virus, she was probably telling the truth about having information. But it was a violation of police policy to leak information on any investigation to a third party. Besides, was it wise to trust this young woman without knowing who she was? Kano weighed his options for a moment before replying. First, I need to know who you are. My name is Kanon. Kanon? Kano thought back to the grisly scene at the Foreign Syndicate's hideout. Did she do that? Kano was almost afraid to wonder. As if sensing his unease, Kanon spoke up, her voice low and calm. Once you hear what I have to say, I think you'll be more inclined to tell me where Hitomi is. There was still a lingering trace of adolescence in this strange girl's face. It was hard to believe someone so young could be a covert Middle Eastern operative. And yet Kano had seen how quickly she'd been able to render Teteno unconscious. Alright then. Guess I'll go first, Kanon began. There's someone out there trying to get their hands on the antiviral drug. My objective is to eliminate this person and put a stop to their plan. Kano felt neither surprise nor horror at her use of the term eliminate. After all that had happened today, he realized his sensibilities had gone numb. This person you're after. You're talking about an arms deal named Alfred, aren't you? Kanon nodded. The UA virus has been weaponized and tested several times on the battlefield to great effect, she said. The antiviral would render this weapon wholly ineffective. Countries the world over are dying to get their hands on it. Then why did Alfred orchestrate this kidnapping? If the goal is to get the antiviral, why not just steal it from the laboratory? There was a lot about this kidnapping case that still didn't add up. Kano was sure Alfred's plan was hidden in those baffling details. Lab security at Akoshi Pharmaceutical is practically perfect. The place is under surveillance 24 hours a day. And getting to where the antiviral is stored requires bypassing 3 sophisticated electronic locks. Getting the antiviral out is impossible. Unexpectedly, a sly grin appeared on Kanon's face. If you were Alfred, how would you steal it? She asked. Huh? Kano was taken aback by the sudden question. He thought good and hard about how to answer. Osawa heads up the lab. Wouldn't he be able to get it out? No. Accessing the storage facility requires the authentication of both Kenji Osawa and Mamoru Tanaka. It's impossible even for one of them to gain entry alone. That's right. Stanley had mentioned the same thing. The lab security also performs a thorough body search at the building's exit. This ensures that employees can't sneak materials out on their way home from work. That level of security was perhaps understandable. Kano tried to think of other ways to gain access to the drug, but none came to him. 6 days ago, Alfred injected Hitomi Osawa with the UA virus. What? The tale had taken a sudden and very unexpected turn. So it wasn't only Maria who had been infected, but Hitomi as well? And 6 days ago at that. Wait, hold on. Hitomi Osawa was perfectly healthy earlier today. So that must mean... Exactly. Kenji Osawa administered the antiviral to her. An unsettling thought occurred to Kano. It was supposedly impossible for Osawa to access the antiviral all by himself. But if he'd been able to give it to his daughter all the same, then that had to mean... He needed Mamoru Tanaka's help to do it, of course, Kanon said. Which is why Alfred bribed Tanaka ahead of time. So that's what happened. Tanaka had been paid off to inject Hitomi with the virus. Getting Osawa to take action at that point wouldn't have been difficult. But why go to such lengths to get the antiviral administered to Hitomi? Why would Alfred have injected Hitomi, or have Hitomi infected with the virus only to then have her father cure it? It's been roughly a week since she was given the antiviral. The DDS is still in her body. The what? Essentially, taking blood from Hitomi Osawa now would allow someone to extract minuscule amounts of the antiviral. Kano was stunned. Suddenly, all these seemingly unrelated threads were beginning to form a pattern. So, since getting the antiviral itself out of the lab wasn't an option, Alfred must have thought of using a human vessel, he murmured. Which means the thing that Alfred's really after is... Kanon nodded. Yes, Hitomi's blood, she finished. Alfred specifically requested that Hitomi make the ransom handoff, Kanon said. Additionally, the crime syndicate was hired to carry out a relay with the attaché case containing the ransom money. This would disrupt the investigation and distract the police, allowing the kidnappers to target Hitomi in secret. Wait, no, hold on. There was something about this story that still made no sense to Kano. Tell me this, he said to Kanon. Why not just kidnap Hitomi in the first place? That was the key question right there. Why kidnap Maria instead? If Alfred wanted Hitomi's blood, abducting her, not her sister, was the obvious move. The girls hadn't gotten themselves mixed up, had they? Maria with Hitomi, Hitomi with Maria. If that were the case, then the syndicate's plan actually had been to abduct Hitomi. Yeah, Kano said excitedly. When you think about it, it all makes sense. Kanon gave him a look. No, it doesn't. Not that it isn't an interesting idea. Well, so much for that, Kano thought. I've met both Maria and Hitomi, Kanon said. They look alike, but they're completely different. That was definitely Maria who was here just now. You got a point. Last night, back at the Osawa residence, when Hitomi agreed to make the ransom with her handoff, her parents would have been with her. And they certainly wouldn't get Maria and Hitomi confused. It was hard to believe the girls had actually switched places. Which meant the criminals had deliberately abducted Maria after all. It'd be like mixing up two completely different colors, Kanon said. They're that different. So it wasn't Alfred's mistake. It's my fault Maria was kidnapped. Kanon looked away. I contacted her before this all started. I told her about the kidnapping plan. I gave her a GPS beacon to give to her sister so that I could track Hitomi's location after she was abducted. But my plan backfired. Maria switched places with Hitomi and let herself get taken by Alfred. The hell? Why hadn't Maria taken this to the police? Or if she was so determined to protect her sister, why not just get her to leave town or something like that? There must have been some sort of accident, though, Kanon continued. The GPS was never turned on after the kidnapping, and I wasn't able to track Maria down. But there was something that even Alfred hadn't counted on. Kanon cast a glance over at Tateno. This person right here, she said. So Tateno had disrupted Alfred's plan by going after Hitomi himself. Considering where it's all led, Kano continued, Alfred must be panicking about now. But we can't let down our guard. Even now, I'm sure the mastermind is thinking of some way to fit what this man has done into their master plan. So it's a perfectly imperfect plan. Is that what you're saying? Precisely. Kanon flashed Kano an approving grin. I heard that from Stanley, Kano said, the man who drove you to the hospital earlier. That case officer, huh? Case officer. So that was it. Stanley was CIA. The U.S. Embassy in Akaska, I guess, functions as the headquarters for the CIA's Japan branch. As the embassy building is not reliably secure, however, the agency carries out many of its activities in specially constructed embassy annex facilities, often under the guise of cultural exchange organizations. There are reportedly over 100 CIA personnel active in Japan, but given the inherent secrecy involved, the exact number is not officially known. Now that Kano thought about it, it all made sense. Since Alfred is an arms dealer with worldwide connections, I don't know what nation might be trying to obtain the antiviral. Obviously, any country that has the viral weapon would want to prevent their enemies from obtaining it. It's no huge surprise that people are butting in trying to put a stop to Alfred's plan. A tiny beeping sound caught Kano's attention. Kanon pulled a PDA from her breast pocket. Personal Digital Assistant refers to various types of small portable devices for information management, occasionally also referred to as a handheld PC. Interesting. The GPS I gave to Maria has just been powered on. Now I can find her location. Where is she? She's on the move. But why is the GPS suddenly active now? Kanon frowned. At any rate, I've told you what I want to know. Now tell me where Hitomi is. Alright. Kano got out his phone and called Stanley. The American was quick to pick up. What's going on? Where's Hitomi? We're on our way to Endo Electronics in Dogenzaka. Endo Electronics? Why are you going there? Kano was familiar with the dilapidated old storefront. He had passed by the place countless times. Too long of a story. There's lots that happened, Stanley replied. How are things on your end? About as bad as they could be, but I'm getting closer to the truth. Please make sure you keep Hitomi safe. Alfred is after her blood. Her blood? Kano told Stanley what he had heard from Kanon. I see. So that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Where is she? Kanon asked as soon as Kano had hung up. She's on her way to an electronics store in Dogenzaka. See. Kanon checked Maria's location on her PDA. Firstly, I need to get to Maria, she said. I'll get to Hitomi after that. I'm going with you. Be my guest. With that, Kanon was off and running. Kano took one last glance at the unconscious Teteno, then hurried after Kanon as fast as he could. They ran from South Hill and Nanpeidai towards Shibuya Station. As they darted and weaved madly through the narrow side streets, Kanon took an occasional glimpse at her PDA. It felt to Kano like they must be taking the shortest possible route to Maria's location. He stayed quiet, keeping pace as Kanon led the way. Before he knew it, they were heading up Dogenzaka. In not too long, they'd be at Endo Electronics. Hey, Kano called out to Kanon. What? She shouted back without turning. Are you sure this is the right area? Are you doubting the GPS? No, it's not that. Kano scanned the area. Just that Endo Electronics is right up ahead. What? Kanon stopped abruptly. What are you suggesting? Twins are heading for the same location. That's my guess. Still, what did that actually mean? Kano hadn't figured that out yet. They took off running again, and before long, Endo Electronics came into view. Kanon stopped in front of the shop door. Right here, she said, glancing again at her GPS. I knew it, Kano thought. Endo Electronics, the same place Hitomi was headed. Guess we're all winding up together, Kanon said. Or else we've been brought together. She peered keenly at the building and its surroundings. Kano swallowed hard. We? You think you've been roped into this too? Quite possibly. Kanon flashed a winning smile, then started to head into the shop. Hold on, I need to report into HQ. Kano hurriedly called Kuze on his cell. Kano, what's going on? I've located Maria Osawa. Huh? Was that? Kuze's words came out as a surprised and childish yelp. Come on. Kanon's smile turned to a steely glare. Time is critical. He nodded silently back at her. Kano, what's the location? Kuze asked. Where are you? I can't say right now, sir. Please just leave this to me. Hey! Now just hold on. But Kano ignored the director's squawking and hung up. Kanon had already entered the shop. She seemed wholly unconcerned by the idea that she might be playing right into Alfred's hands. Despite her youth, she clearly thought of herself as quite capable. Warily, he followed after her. After navigating a veritable cavern of junk, they came to a door that led to the living area beyond. Kanon quietly opened the door and immediately stepped inside. The home was divided into a dwelling area and a workroom. A man's voice could be overheard from the workroom, raised in anger. Don't you want to save Suzune? Kano and Kanon crept closer. Peering through the next doorway, they saw a tense confrontation in progress. Maria and Stanley were standing right there, looking down at a middle-aged man who had restrained Hitomi with a stun gun pressed to her throat. Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. Wait, Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. A young man stepped into view, speaking to the older fellow. But do you think this is what you'd want you to do? Kano watched intently, tensing for action. There was so much at risk here. He was about to barge into the workroom when Kanon grabbed him by the shoulder. Let's wait here and see how this goes first, she whispered. You realize this was good advice. If they provoked the older man, things could very well take a sharp turn for the worse. They just have to hope the young man could talk him down. Another keep out. Nothing left to do but go here. Achi told Stanley and Hitomi what his father had done. As she listened, Hitomi hung her head. Her face was sallow. I'm so sorry, Achi told her. I'm not really sure what to say. He clenched his fist so hard his knuckles popped, struggling to keep his emotions in check. So if I were rendered brain dead, you could help your sister, Hitomi murmured. A state where brain function had ceased irreversibly. In Japan, there are two conditions for declaring breath death. Breath death? Isn't that just death? If it's breath death? Anyway. The first is that the patient must be comatose and in a state of apnea, no longer breathing, due to damage to the brain. The second is that the root cause is diagnosed and is deemed that no reasonable treatment will restore brain function. Stop! Achi said quickly. Please, don't say things like that. A sad look came to Hitomi's face. and she pressed her right hand to her heart. I mean, to find out like this. She turned to Achi, tears glistening in her eyes. I want to help your sister, but we have other things to worry about right now. This time it was Stanley who cut her off. Remember, Alfred is after you, Hitomi. Isn't that what Kanon told you? Yes. She said I was the mastermind's target. Hitomi wiped her tears away with her fingertips. So Alfred and Achi's father are after the same thing, Stanley said. Is that just a coincidence? Didn't sound like he thought so. Hold up, Achi growled, leaning in from this back seat. Yeah, my dad's way out of line. But what he did for Suzune, he wouldn't work with terrorists. I'm not saying he's deliberately aiding terrorists, Stanley replied coolly. It's common sense that a pro wouldn't get an amateur involved with their plans. That makes it too likely that a clumsy misstep will cause things to fall apart. But then again, that's not the way Alfred thinks. So actually, the likelihood of failure could well be part of the plan. Achi thought back to what Kanon had said earlier. If you achieve your goals using accidental means, the outline becomes blurred, and it makes it harder for anyone outside looking in to grasp what the actual plan is. Not only have they put together a perfect plan, they've purposefully left certain tiny holes in it. So if we assume the plan has failed, this slip-up might be exactly what Alfred wants, Stanley muttered. Sort of an intentional hole then, Achi said. Stanley snorted. Kanon told you guys that too, huh? If that's the case, then you really are a fool. Did you just call me? Achi barked. If you've known all along how formidable this opponent is, you should have given Hitomi over to police custody right away. It's only a matter of dumb luck that either of you are still alive right now. Look, luck or not, me and Hitomi have managed to get by safely. That's all that matters. What exactly is the relationship between you two anyway? Are you guys dating? Achi and Hitomi exchanged glances. When Hitomi hesitated uneasily, Achi decided he'd better speak up. No, it's not like that. We just happened to run into each other earlier today. Guess I'm not the kind of guy who can abandon someone in trouble. Can't abandon someone in trouble, huh? You sure you're not just trying to make yourself feel self-important? There are plenty of people out there that you can't see who are also in trouble, who are also suffering. If you only help the ones close at hand, then what's the point, really? The world's a lot bigger than you can imagine, and there's a lot you're blind to. So what? If I see someone who's in trouble, I'm just supposed to ignore them? Nah, I can't do that. If I see someone who's collapsed from hunger, I'm not just gonna walk on by because their people are starving somewhere else in the world. I'll be all, hey, let me treat you to a beef bowl, or whatever. You couldn't have come up with a smarter example? Stanley replied with a tiny laugh. Okay, so I'm an idiot, Achi scowled. My bad. Stanley laughed again. Today's been an interesting day, he said. I was with another fellow earlier who was just like you. Meaning what? He was an idiot too? Yeah, he was an idiot. Do all you Japanese have that problem? Hardly. My little sister's so smart she'd make your eyes pop out. Well, I'm sure relieved to hear that. If everyone in this country were as dumb as you, I might actually start to like this place. Huh? What does that even mean? I talk so I can understand, man. Achi shot back. But Stanley didn't respond. Instead, he stuck his head out the car window, peering at the road ahead. They were close to Shibuya Station now, and the traffic had ground to a halt. Gridlock again? Stanley grumbled. It's probably better just to walk the rest of the way to Endo Electronics. He pulled over on the side of the road, specifically the shoulder that runs along either side of the traveled portion of the roadway, a place where trash tossed out the windows of moving cars tend to accumulate. Tossing cigarette butts and empty cans out onto the street can potentially hurt people, and it definitely makes a mess. Please don't litter. Achi got out of the car, feeling his guts knot up with worry. Pretty soon he was going to have to confront his father. Stanley gave Achi a look. Are you scared about meeting with your father? I'm not scared. First things first, I'm gonna punch him right in the face. Then we can have ourselves a chat. Don't let your emotions get out of control. Your father might be one of the key players in this case. I don't give a damn about that. Achi took Hitomi by the hand and started walking. They'd gone up and down Dogenzaka so many times already today, but this was probably the last time he and Hitomi would make their way up the hill together. Achi walked at an easy pace, wanting to delay the end of their time together just a little longer. Once they reached his home, this kidnapping case would be all over, because his own father, Daisuke, would be arrested as the culprit. Kidnapping for ransom carries a potential life sentence with a definite term of imprisonment of no less than 3 years. Bringing Daisuke down would be so easy. Achi wasn't worried about that part at all. If he didn't hold back, there was a good chance he'd wind up hurting his father. Holding back. Getting hurt. A memory from long ago rose in Achi's mind. A pure white karate gi, thrusting out with his left fist. Daisuke collapsing to the floor. One of many memories of his father that Achi could not forget. Kneeling before the memorial altar of his mother, Katone, Achi wept uncontrollably. He clutched his ohajiki tightly in his hands. A toy made of small coin-shaped glass beads, somewhat similar to marbles. Those are Mancala things. The typical game involves flicking one's pieces into the opponents with a fingertip. Specific rules vary greatly by region. Achi had always been rather clingy with his mother. When she was alive, he had often joined him for ohajiki, origami, and the like. On this particular day, Achi had come home miserable after getting bullied by the neighborhood kids for acting like a wimp. Achi. He turned to see his father holding 2 cups of shaved ice. Come here for a bit. They sat on the stairs together, eating their sweet frozen confections. You want to get tougher? Daisuke's words were soft and simple. How about you and me get tougher together? Achi looked up at his father, frowning in confusion. How are we going to do that? Well, for starters, how about we learn some karate? Karate? Achi's face twisted up unhappily at the idea. He couldn't even imagine himself punching or kicking anyone. It'll be alright, his dad said. I'll go with you. Don't you worry. Daisuke flexed one of his scrawny arms. His biceps bulged up the tiniest bit. Achi was well aware that his father wasn't much of an athlete. There had been an athletics meet at his grade school. Even now, the memory of Daisuke tripping up clumsily during the parent participation relay was burned into Achi's mind. A type of children's event where the parents who have come to watch their children compete are asked to join in with them. Daisuke took part in the tug-of-war, only to get tangled up in the rope and dragged over the line. Achi was understandably disheartened by his father's embarrassing display, but after eating the lunch his father had made for him, his spirits quickly returned. Daisuke had made rice balls that were clumsily oversalted, but Achi could tell how hard he worked to prepare them. I'm there. I guess. I mean, if you're going to be there. And so the two begun training together at a local karate dojo. Achi put on his white gi and fastened his obi tightly. As he did so, he felt as if his feelings were being anchored in place as well. Ichi, ni, san. Achi's gi sleeves made a whooshing sound as he thrust out his fists in time with the sensei's chant. Even simple kata practice made him feel like he was getting stronger somehow. His dad, having left Suzune in the care of their neighbors, was working up a sweat alongside him. But he was out of shape, and his technique was shaky. He was soon exhausted and went to lean up against the dojo wall. Achi stepped out of the training circle and called out to his father. "Dad, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm just gonna take a little break." Daisuke sounded like he was on the edge of hyperventilating. "Thanks, Dad." "Huh? What for?" "For asking me to come take karate lessons with you." Achi was sure he'd never have dared to go to the dojo alone. Hey, just so long as you're liking it. Now go on, get back to training." With a deep bow, Achi resumed his kata practice. As they were walking home from the dojo, Achi turned to his father. "How come you want to get stronger, Dad?" he asked. "I mean, you're not getting bullied by your friends." Daisuke was quiet for a few moments before answering. His words came out awkward and embarrassed. "I was picked on a lot when I was your age too, Achi. I had a friend who would always come by and bail me out." "A friend?" "Yeah, a friend." A distant look came into his father's eyes. He was a real fighter. I always looked up to him. I wanted to be strong like him. His expression turned lonely. "I don't get to see him anymore, though." "Why not?" Achi asked. "Did he die?" No, nothing like that." "Then did you guys have a fight?" "Something like that." Daisuke smiled sadly. He stared out into the sky for a while before speaking up again. "His name's Tateno." "Hmm?" "My friend, that's his name." Achi's father increased his pace. "Come on," he said. "We have to go and pick up Suzune." After that, despite Achi's questions, Daisuke would say no more about his old friend. By the time he was almost done with grade school, Achi had grown up fit and strong, almost unrecognizable from his younger self. Perhaps he had had the physical knack in him all along. He was chosen as the representative for the boys' karate team, even managing to take second place in a national tournament. Nobody bullied Achi anymore. One time, Daisuke suggested that the two of them do some sparring. Achi may have been a national competitor, sure, but he was still a grade schooler. Squaring off against an adult. His father had been training for close to 2 years now, as well, and his confidence had grown accordingly. Achi was excited to be able to face off against his old man. Early on in their karate training, Achi's kumite had seemed rather hopeless. He had been shocked that his out-of-shape father was able to overpower him, but also pleased to get a sense of how strong the man was. This time, Achi thought, he might as well lose again, but he was going to go all out. As they adopted their fighting stances, Daisuke's face was full of confidence. The instructor gave the signal to begin, and Achi opened with a sharp low kick. Daisuke didn't guard against it. The blow caught him in the thigh. It looked to Achi like he'd allowed himself to take the hit, not fearing the effect of a child's kick. Achi proceeded to unleash several more kicks to the same spot. Bit by bit, Daisuke's face revealed his discomfort. Finally, he yanked his leg away. That was when Achi realized. His father wasn't letting himself get hit on purpose. He was just unable to keep up with the speed of his son's footwork. If that was the case, Achi felt bad about exploiting his dad's weakness. He decided to leave his leg alone. Instead, he punched at his father's midsection. He was shocked by the impact as the blow struck home. He hadn't attacked with a great deal of force. He'd just thrown a light midsection punch as a check. But as Achi pulled back his fist, Daisuke crumpled to the floor, writhing in pain as he clutched his gut. Achi stared in disbelief at his own hand. That was the last day that Daisuke went to the dojo. Your dad's pathetic. Yeah, he's such a loser. Achi was on his way home from practice, and some older students from the dojo had started ribbing on him. What did you just say? Those kids were middle schoolers, but Achi wasn't about to back down. He thrust out a quick punch, stopping it just short of one boy's nose. Go on, say that again, I'll kick your ass. The older boys went pale, then took off and ran. But this small victory did nothing to bolster Achi's spirits. His father had looked so small and lonely, heading away after quitting karate. But Achi didn't think that there was anything pathetic about that. Sure, maybe by now he was better at karate than his father, but really, what difference did that make? In growing stronger, he'd learned something. Using force to win out over someone else didn't mean anything. Strength alone didn't determine a person's worth. Achi loved and respected his father for going to the dojo with him. Beating him in a karate match didn't change the way he felt. Achi resurfaced from his memories to hear Stanley talking on his phone. I see, so that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Curious, Achi turned to the American. Who were you just talking to? Stanley's reply was clipped. That other idiot I was telling you about earlier. With that, Stanley proceeded to wrap up his phone call. Guess I'm not going to get much out of this guy. Oh, Achi thought. Running an ad. People don't get pre-roll. By now, they see Endo Electronics up ahead. Achi was about to hurry inside when Stanley stopped him. I'll go in first. You two wait out here. No way, this is my dad we're talking about. And don't you think it's dangerous to bring Hitomi right to him? Well, alright. We'll wait here for a bit, and once we know it's safe, we'll head on in. Cool with that? You cool with that? I'm cool with that. Stanley stepped inside. Achi fussed about impatiently, staring at the entryway. The palm of his clenched fist was sweating. Never before in his life had he just wanted to deck his old man. Hitomi watched him uneasily. Hitomi. Yes? Sorry. I really don't want you to have to see this, but I think you're about to witness the crowning shame in Endo family history. Achi, don't say that, Hitomi said. She squeezed his hand. He found his other fist unclenching. Please, you have to try to talk to your father. Yeah, I know. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from inside the building. The time for waiting had passed. Let's go! Archie and Hitomi raced inside. Barging into the living quarters without bothering to shed his shoes, he heard his father's voice coming from the workroom. Dad! Archie hurried through the workroom door and saw Stanley holding his father pinned across the desk. Let me go! Please, let me go! Daisuke thrashed both his legs. Stanley, please, let my father go! I want to talk to him! Stanley snorted dismissively, but he did as he was asked. Daisuke stood up, rubbing at a sore wrist. Dad, please, you have to tell me. Where is Maria? Maria? What are you talking about? Daisuke wouldn't meet his eyes. Don't play dumb with me, Archie pointed at Hitomi. You know who this is, don't you? Hitomi Osawa, the girl you've been after. Maria is her sister. But Daisuke remained silent. You're gonna pretend you didn't call the hospital? Nothing about... Wait, you're gonna pretend you didn't call the hospital? Nothing about maybe being able to get your hands on a heart? I mean, seriously? It's all so simple. Even I can tell what's been going on. You've been watching me and Hitomi through the surveillance cameras. And you were telling that guy with the cane where we were. The blood began to drain from his father's face. Don't you go quiet on me. If I'm wrong, then go ahead. Tell me the truth. Daisuke's arm shot out suddenly, knocking an external hard drive from his desk onto the floor. It was over and done before Stanley could stop him. Stanley hunched down and picked up the shattered drive. I'm guessing there was important data on here. Footage from the cameras, maybe? I have no idea what you're talking about, Daisuke spat. You can't do this to an innocent person, Dad, Archie shouted, grabbing his father by the collar. There was a sound of footsteps from out in the shop. Someone was quickly getting closer. Stanley grabbed Hitomi by the hand and pulled her back against the wall. Archie stiffened as he turned his gaze to the door. Oh shit. I say let's keep going. I don't want to end on any keep outs or unfinished sections today. Oh shit, what? Huh. So where do I find the jump here? Yeah, I'd like a hint. I'll take a hint. Is it in the, this little questioning or something? Could it be this? That's not right. Yeah. Now, I remembered it just as you were saying it. That's really funny and sneaky. I like that. The workroom door slowly eased open. Achi was too shocked for words. The girl who entered looked just like Hitomi. Maria! Hitomi! Achi blinked in bewilderment. It was almost as if Hitomi were standing in front of a mirror. The two girls looked so similar. Maria, thank goodness you're alright. So sorry I had you worried. Maria was safe, Achi realized. At last he had managed to fulfill his duty. How did you manage to get out of the storeroom? Wait, how did you manage to get out of the storeroom? Daisuke had gone pale. Tell me, Maria said sharply. Who was it who came up with this kidnapping plan? Suddenly, Daisuke shoved Maria aside and lunged for Hitomi. Stanley moved to stop him, but before he could intervene, the older man had a hold on Hitomi, pressing something that looked like a flashlight up against her neck. Dad? Achi started towards him, but Stanley held up a hand. Don't move! That's a stun gun! A piece of self-defense equipment for repelling would-be attackers with an electrical shock. There were several types, including baton-type stun prods and guns that fire needles attached to flexible wires. The latter type especially is frequently referred to in the US as a taser or taser gun, due to the popular models produced by Taser International, now Axon. Stun guns are used not only by civilians, but also by law enforcement and military personnel for non-lethal applications. If he zaps her in the neck, it could kill her. You know your stuff, Daisuke said. You deal in American electronics? No, I do this for a living. Aura. Wait. Aw, man, I wish I could... I'll go back. Achi was too shocked to even move. Stanley took another step towards Daisuke, keeping his gun trained on the other man. Hey, stop this! Please, just stop! Snapping out of his daze, Achi scampered between the two men. Stanley didn't lower his gun, but unless he shoved Achi aside, he couldn't get a clear shot at Achi's dad. Achi turned to face his father. Dad, let Hitomi go. You need to stop this nonsense. Achi walked slowly toward his father, a pleading look in his eyes. Nonsense? Which one of us is talking nonsense here? You don't know what's going on. If you knew everything, then you'd be helping me. What do you mean, everything? With this girl's heart, we can save Suzune. Dad, who was it exactly that told you that? Daisuke did not reply. I asked you a question. Who was it that put this crazy idea into your head? A foreign organ trafficker I met at the hospital, Daisuke muttered. In Japan, a medical professional known as a transplant coordinator handles the liaison between the donor and recipient parties, but there are many cases of illegal or borderline illegal activity carried out by third-party organ brokers. There are countries where organ transplants are openly performed for monetary gain, and no shortage of specialists willing to do the job. These questionable markets include suppliers who source viable organs and tissues for transplant from cadavers. Stanley let out a snort. A likely story. It's true. I was suspicious at first myself, Daisuke said stubbornly, but I couldn't just sit around and wait for Suzune to die. And after talking to him about her rare blood type and all the difficulties in performing a transplant, he promised he'd do everything in his power. Daisuke's hands were trembling. Tears welled up in his vacant and bloodshot eyes. Then a while later, he got back in touch and told me he'd found a potential match. Someone with the same blood type as Suzune and roughly the same age. But then he told me that the girl was still alive. And so what was the point? Her heart might be a match for Suzune's, but it didn't matter if we couldn't get our hands on it. And I said that, but then the man told me. He told you what? Achi bit his lip. He told me to abduct her and turn her over to him. After that, he'd find a way to make it all work. At last, Daisuke had confessed. Now Achi had to try to come to grips with the truth that he had just heard. I had to do something, his father continued vehemently. I had to abduct this girl and see things through. I just couldn't take it. Otone had already been taken from me. The thought of losing Suzune too. I had to make sure I didn't fail. So it was the organ trafficker who came up with the kidnapping scheme then, Stanley said. He kept his gun aimed at his target. Daisuke nodded. Describe him for me. He was tall, had black hair, spoke fluent Japanese. Stanley raised an eyebrow at that. Achi wondered if he had some idea who it might be. And taking Maria Osawa hostage in order to lure Hitomi out. Was that his idea as well? Yeah, that's right. I allowed his computer access to my secure surveillance camera system as well. Oh, Jesus. But then, this morning I got a call from the hospital saying Suzune's condition was critical. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to help my girl right away. And then... Daisuke cut himself off, reaffirming his grip on his stun gun. I was looking at the surveillance monitor and I saw a detective I happened to know. He was right next to this girl here, and so I decided to ask him. I knew if I did he wouldn't refuse. He could never refuse a request from me. And that was the man with the cane? Achi asked. His voice was low and hoarse. Yes, I was giving him directions while I followed you on the monitors. Dad, you need to let go of Hitomi now. There's no point to this. Achi took another step closer to his father. There is a point! If I kill this girl here and now, your sister can get the surgery she needs. But even Achi knew that things couldn't possibly work out that way. His father had grown so desperate to help Suzune that he'd lost all sense of judgment. Why, Achi? Why won't you help me? Don't you want to save Suzune? Daisuke made a pathetic sight. And yet his desperation to save his child was so palpable, it was heart-rending. Achi thought back to that time he'd laid his father out when sparring. No matter how pathetic he may have looked, Achi had always felt that sense of paternal love from him. You're not going to be able to talk him down, Stanley murmured. Achi shook his head. Stanley, he said, lower your gun. Tears were welling up in his eyes. Please, lower your gun. Hearing the determination in Achi's voice, Stanley quietly complied. Achi stepped up to Daisuke, giving a firm grip on his father's slender shoulder. Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. Then why are you trying to stop me? Dad, do you think this is what she'd want you to do? Daisuke's face fell. Did Suzune ask for this, Dad? Did she tell you to take someone else's heart so that she could live longer? Did she, Dad? Suddenly, the fight seemed to ebb from Daisuke's body. The stun gun hung limply in his hand. If Suzune asked me to go and get someone's heart for her, I wouldn't object. I'd help her like she wanted. I wouldn't let you bear these crimes by yourself. But that's not what this is it? Suzune would never ask us to do something like this, would she? By now, tears were streaming down from Achi's cheeks. He knew that his father thought about Suzune more than he thought of anyone else. And so he should know full well that she would never want this. Suzune's not like me. She's smart, she's kind, and she'd never be happy about taking someone else's heart. Even if it saved her life, I'm sure she'd never accept that. She wouldn't be able to live with it, knowing something so horrible had happened to someone else for her sake. Isn't that the Suzune we know? Daisuke's cheeks were smeared with tears now as well. But then, we're not going to be able to help her. The sound of father and son weeping echoed through the workroom. Maybe so, maybe we won't. But that's better than the misery and suffering she'd have to live with. Daisuke slumped to his knees on the floor, collapsing like a crumbling mound of sand. Hitomi, freed from his grip, stood motionless. There were tears in her eyes, too. You're such an idiot, Dad. Such a complete, utter idiot. Sobbing, Achi embraced his father. There was a sudden thud from near the door. Everyone turned to look. Maria had crumpled to the floor, and a newcomer had appeared. At some point, Kanon had silently entered the room. Now she cradled Maria in her arms. Standing in the doorway was a man Achi didn't recognize, his face pale. "Stay back!" Kanon shouted at Achi when he tried to approach. It looked like Maria had fallen unconscious. Achi's heart was racing in his chest. An eerie silence fell over the room. For several seconds, no one said a word, their eyes all fixed on Maria. Finally, Kanon looked up, her face ashen. It's starting. I'm gonna continue. I'm going through with this. After the young man's desperate pleading, the other fellow, apparently his father, finally gave in. He released his hold on Hitomi. The tension in the room was replaced by a solemn air of gravitas. Seeing father and son weeping as they spoke made Kano think back to his conversation with Toteno before the stakeout. What was it in people that drove them to do such horrible things? Sometimes it was the desire to save the ones they loved. Even such a heartfelt human emotion could drive someone to wrongdoing. Why? Why did people have to be like that? A sudden thud snapped Kano out of his musing. An instant later, Kanon hurried past him into the workroom. Maria had collapsed onto the floor, and now Kanon was beside her. In a panic, Kano rushed to the workroom as well. "Stay back!" Kano shouted as the others tried to huddle around the fallen girl. "Please don't be what I think this is." Had the virus gone symptomatic? 2 hours ago, Stanley had told Kano that Maria was infected. He'd also said that her symptoms wouldn't develop for another 4 hours. Shouldn't they still have 2 more hours to go? Maria looked like she was dead. Her eyes closed, her body motionless. Hitomi tried to approach despite Kanon's warning. "Maria!" she cried. "Maria, what's wrong?" Kano held his arms wide to hold her back. "Your sister has been infected with the Uwa virus." "The Uwa virus?" Tomi's face went pale. "Hey," Kano said to Kanon. "Should you really be that close? If she's developed symptoms..." But Kanon didn't move from Maria's side. She calmly rested her hand on the other girl's forehead. "There's no fever," she said, "and there's no blood coming from her eyes, no lymph swelling. I'll be alright. She hasn't gone symptomatic yet." "In that case, why did she collapse?" Tomi asked. "I'm not sure yet. Whatever the case, if we don't get her that antiviral, she's done for." "And we have to get her to the lab right away," Hitomi said. She was trembling with anxiety. "No, that's not an option." Kano's tone was grave. "You may already be aware, Miss Osawa, but without a password we can't access the antiviral storage." "But when I went there, my father and Mr. Tanaka..." "Mamoru Tanaka is dead. Murdered." "What?" She stared at him uncomprehendingly. No, that can't be true." "He was a member of a crime syndicate. It's possible they killed him in order to silence him." "So then, there's no way to save my sister?" There was a hollow look in Hitomi's eyes. "No, I won't accept that. Why? Why can't we help her?" But no one had an answer. Kano gritted his teeth and hung his head. Why did it have to come to this? He'd come this far, but there was nothing he could do, and he hated himself for it. "I'll go to the laboratory." It was Kanon. "Electronic lock breaking is my specialty." "Wait," the young man Achi spoke up suddenly. "So you're a martial arts badass, but your specialty is lock breaking?" He looked positively dumbstruck. Kanon ignored him, thinking out loud. "Brute force. A cryptanalysis technique that involves test input of all theoretical possible patterns. If time were unlimited, this would be the most reliable means of decipherment. However, in practice, the process takes massive amounts of time and computational power, and can be defeated by systems that prohibit access after a limited number of failed input attempts. Side channel. Rather than trying to decipher the password itself, this method involves analyzing information from the device, such as processing time, power consumption, and electromagnetic leaks, and using these details to exploit the system. Isolating the raw state of devices is a crucial element of counter side channel attacks. Shortcut. A cryptanalysis method that uses mathematical algorithms to carry out efficient bulk calculations against a block cipher that makes use of a shared key for encryption and decryption. Even when such calculations are theoretically possible, however, in practice the process requires a large amount of time, and the block cipher is seldom at real risk. Given the situation, I think I have to go with side channel. "Side channel?" Stanley asked. "Where's your equipment?" "One of the lab PCs will suffice. I can connect to a special server from the net." "I don't really understand the stuff you're talking about," Achi said, "but I'll trust you to handle this. I mean, you did risk your life to save Hitomi from that minivan explosion and all." Kanon nodded. "I have to warn you in advance, though. Cryptanalysis can take hours and still yield no results. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to get the doors unlocked before Maria develops symptoms." "I understand," Hitomi said. Achi nodded too. No one present had any objections. All of a sudden, there was a curious sound from somewhere in the room. "What's that?" Kano asked. "Making that noise?" He looked around the workroom. This is ominous. That's my computer." Daisuke hurried to his desktop. The bank of monitors which had been displaying surveillance camera footage from around Shibuya had all gone black. What the hell? What's going on, Dad? Archie joined his father, staring at the computer screens. It's all gone. Camera footage. It's been deleted. Daisuke blinked in disbelief. Now then, it seems our main cast has all been assembled. A man's voice. Wait.
Now then, it seems our main cast has been assembled.
A man's voice, distorted by a voice modulator, suddenly emerged from the computer speakers. A moment later, the monitors began to display a view of the inside of the workroom. Dad, what the hell is this? Someone's broken in through a firewall. Security system for preventing unauthorized intrusion into a computer network. The term stems from a metaphorical reapplication of the concept of a wall meant to inhibit the spread of fire or other destructive forces. They've hijacked the surveillance camera system. The color drained from Daisuke's face as he looked at the screens. Where are they filming us from? Kano asked, scanning inside of the room. He used the image on the monitors to guess where the camera might be located. Over here? The lens of the camera set atop the computer monitor gleamed like an eye. It was a miniature camera used for web conferencing and the like.
Now that Maria and Hitomi are both here, you have probably surmised the situation at hand, and so I offer a proposal. The laboratory password, in exchange for Hitomi's blood.
Realizing now that it was Alfred's voice they were hearing, everyone in the room froze.
At 7 o'clock, roughly 1 hour from now. See that Hitomi Osawa is waiting in the Scramble intersection outside Shibuya Station, just like this morning. Unless, of course, you're feeling particularly confident. You do have Kanan with you. Perhaps you'd care for a gamble on her lockbreaking skills instead.
Kanan clucked her tongue in frustration. Clucked? Clicked? Alfred had known exactly what the plan was.
Of course, if Kanan isn't able to get the door open in time, what will you do then? Maria is sure to die, yes. But that's not all. If you don't agree to my offer, I have the means of creating another Maria, and a third. These infectees will spread the virus through Tokyo. The death toll will likely number in the hundreds of thousands. It is difficult to predict the scope of infection in the event of a bioterrorist attack, employing a highly infectious viral agent in a city with a large and mobile population. In a worst-case scenario, some researchers estimate as many as several million infected in a matter of days. So do think carefully before you decide.
I want to think that Alfred just explained what a death toll was to these guys in the middle of his spiel. Alfred's voice was chillingly matter-of-fact.
I will appear at the rendezvous in person. After all, it wouldn't do for the star of the show to miss the final curtain. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you then.
Silence fell. Then the images on the computer monitor returned to normal. The surveillance camera footage came back online as well. He's that good of a hacker. Daisuke promptly yanked out his Ethernet cable and slammed his fist on the keyboard. Damn it! There's a hole in the firewall. I'll have to redo my security from the ground up. Good call, Kanan said calmly. We can't win if our intel keeps getting leaked. Stanley pursed his lips in consternation. What do we do? Kano asked him. Do we give in to his demands? I mean, do we really expect that he's just going to blithely show up like that? He's practically begging for us to come and catch him. There ought to be some deeper plan at work. If it means saving my sister, I'll do it. Hitomi was resolute. No, Stanley said, you can't. What? Why not? Because if you do, you'll be killed. What? Hitomi's voice caught her in the throat. With the antiviral still present in your body, a week after the fact, you're just too much of a liability for Alfred to just let go. He's right, don't do it! Achi exclaimed. Hitomi, you can't go. Even still, I want to do it. Hitomi stared defiantly at Stanley. You still want to go, even knowing that you'll be killed? You can't just sit here and hope that Kanan is able to pull this off, she said. I want to do something for my sister. I want to save her. She peered down at Maria, sprawled on the floor. She'd object to me going, I'm sure of that. But I want to do what I can. To do things my way. No one tried to contradict her this time. If she's willing to take the risk, there are things the rest of you can do too. It was Kanan again. Let's hear it, Kanan replied. He squared his shoulders. He was of the same mind as Hitomi. He couldn't just do nothing and leave it all on Kanan. After everything he'd been through, he wanted to stick with this case until the very end. Apprehend Alfred at the rendezvous and demand the password from him. Kanan offered the suggestion as if it were a simple task. That lets you get what you want without putting Hitomi in danger. Kano let out a sigh. Hold on, he said. Even if we do arrest him, how are we going to get him to cough up the password? We don't have time to drag him off to an interrogation room. And besides, he doesn't strike me as the sort to offer a confession that easily. There are ways, Kanan said. Once Alfred has made contact with Hitomi, just call my cell phone. Hitomi tilted her head. Call you? I have plenty of information Alfred might want to bargain for. I can negotiate with him directly. Kano considered Kanan's proposal. Proposal? I see. So we'll try both options. Attempt to hack the password at the lab, and also try negotiating with Alfred. That gives us 2 chances. With that tiny ray of hope, Hitomi's face brightened some. We'll split into 2 groups, one for the lab and one for Shibuya Station, Kanan said. Let's exchange phone numbers so we can be in touch when the time comes. The group quickly shared contact info as suggested. Hitomi and Kanan called one another's cell phones to be sure. Hitomi's cheerful ringtone felt out of place, but also somehow soothing, a fragment of normalcy in the midst of a crisis. Well, I guess we're all set then, Hitomi said, looking down at the LCD screen. Her expression turned apologetic. I'm sorry, Kanan, for having to keep putting things on you. Hey, Kanan replied. Don't worry about it. Okay, now I guess I should call my father. Hitomi called Kenji Osawa on his cell, asking him to let Maria and Kanan into the lab. Kano leaned in to whisper into Kanan's ear. Are you sure you're okay with this? With what? I know that you're after Alfred. Are you sure you want to go to the lab and not... Right now, I want to save Maria. That's all. Her tone was curt and mechanical as ever, but there was a fierce gleam of determination in her eyes. Maria was clearly someone very special to her. All right, Kano replied. Leave Alfred to me. He thumped himself on the chest. He'd succeeded this time, no matter what. He'd succeed this time, no matter what the odds. Kano could scarcely recall the whirlwind of events that had brought him here. He'd somehow survived a dozen disasters. Even now, a dear friend was in the hospital, at risk of dying. There were times when he'd been ready to give up, and yet, at the end of it all, here he was. His opponent was an international terrorist. No matter how you looked at it, that wasn't a matchup for a mere detective. But I'm going to do it anyway. Rumi, Shizuo, Sasayama, and Detective Tateno. I'm going to take down Alfred and save Maria Osawa's life. Just you watch and see. And finally, one Mr. Kenji Osawa. Fuck. Missed inputs. They call me Miss Inputs. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes tight. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Osawa's cell phone rang. When he saw the name on the incoming call display, he nearly shouted out loud. It was Hitomi. Hitomi? Are you alright? Please tell me you're alright. Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. But Maria's... Maria? Is Maria there with you? Osawa's heart leaped. Dad, there isn't any time for me to explain everything. So I'll just have to give you the main points. This is so we can save my sister, so just stay calm and listen. Osawa struggled to hold back the 1,000 questions that immediately came boiling into his mind. There's a girl named Kanon who's going to bring Maria to the lab. She's going to try to hack the password in order to get us inside. Wait, hold on. Just what in the world is going on? There are a bunch of people here working to help save Maria. Can you wait for us at the lab, Dad? I'm not sure that the electronic lock is something that'll be so easy to... We've got another plan in motion, too. And if that goes well, we might be able to learn the password. It's all too much to follow, but Osawa realized he'd have to take Hitomi at her word. It was their only hope of saving Maria. Alright, he said. I'll do as you ask. But, you said you're trying 2 approaches. You're not going to be in danger, are you? No, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Okay. Very well. I'm heading to the lab now. You can't! You can't go! The moment Osawa hung up and started for the house, I clung to him from behind. You use the antiviral now, he said. Everything will go public. There's no way we can keep the virus or the antiviral under wraps at this point. Osawa tried to pull free, but his wife was stronger than he'd expected. Besides, if Maria infects other people, the whole world is going to find out in a matter of hours. No, we can just quarantine her. If it's handled correctly, we'll still be able to retain secrecy. Ai's voice was as cold as ice. Do you even have any idea what you're saying right now? I do. I know how it sounds, but this is the only thing I can... Her voice trailed off. He could feel the force of her trembling where she held him. Have I really put you into that much of a corner? Osawa slipped from Ai's arms and prostrated himself on the ground in front of her. I'm sorry. I'm truly, truly sorry. Oh, stop this. Get up. If you're really sorry, then don't go to that lab. But Osawa remained silent, his forehead pressed to the dirt. If you use that antiviral without corporate approval, your time at Akoshi is finished. That doesn't matter to me anymore. How can you say that? Virology is the only thing you've ever cared about. I began pummeling his back. Maybe virology is all that I care about. I don't know if the first thing about anything else. I never wanted to know. Never even thought to find out. Never bothered to learn what you or my own children might think. I'm a failure. As a father and as a husband. How dare you say that How dare you say that only after it's come to this? I struck him again, harder than before. You're right. He gasped out the words between her blows. Maybe this has been too long coming. But it's not too late. I can still start over. Start over? She paused in disbelief. You already turned down that American job. If you use that antiviral now, there won't be any starting over. You'll lose everything. Will I lose you too? After you've gone and thrown everything else away like this? How could I possibly stay with you? I was sobbing softly by now. Osawa wondered what her tears were for. But there was only one thing he did know. She was right. They couldn't be together anymore. He got to his feet and headed back into the house, leaving Ai behind. He hurried through the back entrance and went into the garage. Climbed into his car, fastened his seatbelt, and took a deep breath. The image of a younger Maria arose in the back of his mind. There she was at that park, getting drenched by the rain, holding back her tears as she waited for her father. Wait for me, Maria. This time I'm gonna come for you. I was wrong. Going to the lab wouldn't mean losing everything. He'd let too many important things slip through his fingers. Now it was time to take them back. Osawa pulled his car onto the street and sped toward the laboratory. As if to signal that the long day was drawing to a close, the dazzling sun sank down between the buildings in the distance. Oh shit. What the fuck? Oh shit. Well. With all that said and done, I will not be able to play this for about 10 more days because I have an on-call shift. So, with that said, thank you all so very much for coming to the stream tonight. It was a real pleasure having you all here. And next time, let's see if we can save Shibuya. All of us. Take care, everybody, and have a good night.